Today we're going to do a Pixie variation on Anna, and I'll show you texturizing techniques and point cutting and shaping of a Pixie. Always wash the client's hair to bring it back to its original state. So always examine the person's head shape before you start cutting, just with your hands. And we're going to cut the shape of the haircut when it's wet bluntly. Most of the cutting will take place while the hair is dry, so don't take too much time on doing the shape while it's wet. So as you will notice, I will be using the same technique as I did for that all scissor men's haircut, which is the square shape. I usually start my haircuts here at the ear or in the back if I'm trying to leave this area longer. But today the haircut will be pretty uniform with leaving the top fringe area longer. Comb the hair how it grows naturally. As you can see here, I comb the cowlick so it naturally flows the way it flows. Shake it out so you'll see it. So I want to bring it up to above the ears, which is 1 inch. Taking it straight out from the head and taking 1 inch off. And connecting the next section. So you want to be clean with your sections and your partings. As you can see, I'm creating a straight square line. Here's the cowlick area, so make sure you use the head shape there as your guide to have this hair reach to that area, otherwise it's going to stick out and be too short. So if you'd like to leave the sideburns a little bit longer, it depends on the preference. There's a million variations of Pixie haircuts. They all depend on length and hair texture. Connecting the top to the sides. So I usually like to start at the top of the head here and go into 3 sections. Because we are going to be leaving the fringe area longer, I'm going to over direct this back a little bit when I'm cutting it. Pick the hair straight up from the head using your sides here as the guide and just cutting it straight across. We're not going to be doing any texturizing while the hair is wet. Directing it back a little bit and trimming it slightly, and you can alter it when it's dry. For Anna's hair is the salt spray, which I use basically on every single haircut before I dry it. As you can see, I'm not worried about the neck area or this too much. I just wanted to take off the length while it's wet. I'll dry it and then we will taper it and finish it up. You dry the hair with your hands. Don't try to use a brush unless a person styles it with a brush. But she wears her hair wash and wear pretty much. Also drying it how it will be worn. She's not wearing it back, otherwise I'll be drying it back. So I'm drying it the way it's going to be worn and the way I want to style it at the end. Start planning your cutting techniques when you're drying it. Try to feel it out for any bulk or the shape, and use that time to plan your game plan for the texture and thinning out and the final shape. Always check your shape from the front, because that is how you can see it clearly, or the shape from the back, from the side. So it's not just looking at it from the side, you're trying to see the full shape. Texturize with the thinning scissors the whole haircut exactly how I cut it in the same sections. Pick up the hair, it's very blunt. So the blunt hair doesn't have that much movement. So you want to add in some negative spaces in it so it blends and lays nicer and softer. Don't forget to keep the shape of cutting. Don't go randomly texturizing. I'm still creating the square shape. And from the square shape, you could round it. You can go anywhere you want. But if you round it, you can't create a square shape from that. I'm just making sure that there aren't any blunt areas anywhere throughout the haircut. So that's the first step of softening your haircut. And after this, I will show you point cutting to add a little more texture. Check your haircut by going this way and making sure everything's adding up. It takes 1 minute to go over the whole haircut like that, so don't skip that step, otherwise the haircut will not grow out evenly. Compare the two sides. As you can see, this one goes in a little bit, has a flat shape. And this one, as you can see, doesn't have the shape yet. So when I'm looking at it from the front, I see here it's bulging out a little bit. So you can do this by picking it up, and I can see the problem over here. It's a blunt little section. Or you can grab your texturizing shears and go in and take out a little bit of bulk like that, checking your shape while you're doing that. This is the area that becomes the bushiest first in short haircuts, so you really want to make sure that you're putting enough texture so it doesn't grow back in a week. Just think of it as sculpting. I'll move to the top. The same sections again, as you can see, very blunt cutting area. So I'm putting maybe 3 snips to break that up. The cowlick area, I usually pick it up all together and see if there's any long ones and match them to the short ones lightly. You don't want to just take out this area and start cutting, because that's the area where the head rounds and you need that weight. Otherwise this hair will stick out and the shape will be ruined. So now I'm just doing the same thing on top as I did on the sides, adding texture. And short hair cannot have enough texture, because when you have a lot of texture, you can work messy. You could get up in the morning and it will look good because it has a lot of movement and it's not gonna look like a helmet. on your hair. How to cut the front area. Okay, so I'm grabbing my regular scissors. We're cutting the length of the front so it doesn't go in her eyes. So as you can see, it's about an inch off. So don't ever just take your scissors and go like this, because then it's going to be hard to get rid of that blunt line. Start from the sides and then over direct the front to the sides, so then by over directing some of the length will remain. You have more control over how much you're taking off. So as I can see is an inch off, so I just split this front area into a few sections. 1, 2, 3. Take this one, take an inch off by slicing. There it is. And then that prevents you from cutting too much hair and to making it look blunt. So now I'm cutting this, over directing, side over directing towards that way. The front always over direct, because once you cut the hair it will spring up a little bit, so you don't want to go too short. You could always go shorter. If you're using this technique, you don't have to take off the whole length of the hair. You can grab a section and sculpt half that section off, but still leaving the length. So that will make that little section thinner. It's a little too blunt, or it's a little too thick. There needs to be a negative space there. So I'm grabbing one piece and taking off half that piece. And here too. Carving out small sections of the hair. Putting negative spaces in the sideburns. I'm taking a little bit of the bulk out. Communicate with the client what they like, if they like sideburns, if they don't want the sideburn, if they want it faded, or if they want to leave the sideburns long. It's all a matter of preference, and have ideas ready to give the client and have them decide what they want. If they don't know, use your creative judgment and figure out what they do for a living. Those are good things to ask a client. So if they're in a fashion industry, you know, you could go more edgy. If they're working in an office, you know, you can't do something too crazy. I'm using the regular scissors, and what I like to do is after I use the texturizing scissors to go over the whole haircut and clean up all those little loose ends. So basically I'm picking it up and I'm cleaning up the canvas. As you can see here, it's textured, but it's a little frizzy. So I'm adding little triangles here and there, and the deeper you go, the more texture there will be. So you're not trying to really cut the length right now, you're trying to add negative spaces and clean up the outline. So now let me show you how to do the neckline, which I'm going to use a number 8 clipper. I like to finish this area before I finish the rest of the haircut, so I could see the final shape from the back, how snug it is. I could match something with the top that goes with that. I'll take a 7. Now I'll take a for one, this really short one, I'll clean up the neck hair. I'm using the side of the clipper to add the texture, so it's not so blunt. I'm turning it, just going in a little bit. So as you can see, I cut the hair like this. Now I'm going this way. And basically what I'm trying to do is make sure this hair over here is not longer than this hair. It should be the same or shorter. So if you check from this angle, this hair is shorter, which is good. So then this hair won't be weighing down this hair in case she's wearing it messy. I'm gonna still add more texture to it, not taking up any of the length, just adding negative spaces. And I do this in 3 sections, the one to the left, middle, and right. And straight up. Make sure you're holding the hair so you have hair that you're cutting into. Don't just hold the hair here. As you can see, there's nothing for me to texture. So you need about 1.5 inches room if you want to add some negative spaces or the texture. So as you can see, I'm going deep in here, but I'm leaving this. And then I'm getting rid of all this there. With the sideburns, I'm taking it and I'm trimming it with the texturizing shears. Always blow dry the hair very well before you add any product, so there's no remaining hair in it. So I'm adding the Haze styling powder. I just want to see how this hair looks really messy, because since it's washed, it's very silky, but once she doesn't wash it for a day or two, it's gonna get more messy. You're trying to see the whole haircut and the composition as a whole. Are there any pieces that you feel like are boring or not cool? So for that, you need to train your eye by looking at random haircuts in magazines, and once the client is in your chair, you will automatically have a trained eye to tell whether something's out of place. I'm adding Casual Act molding paste, so just a little to define the texture. So when you're adding product, you want to put a little bit on your hand, work it throughout the whole haircut evenly, and mess it up, and then you'll put it down. Yeah, so I think it's good.